Okay, thanks for watching the second in our series of live discussions around mental health in the hospitality industry. I'm Cara, I'm the editor of the Staff Canteen, and each week I will be joined by Chris Hall, founder of the Burnt Chef Project, and a guest. Chris will be offering tips, advice for employers and employees for helping and managing and talking about mental health. And this week we are joined by Chef Adam Simmonds, who is also a Burnt Chef ambassador. So thank you both for joining me. If you could just put your mics on and your videos on so we can hear you and see you, which is what we need to do. How are you both on the eve of lockdown 2?
Yeah, I'm all right actually. I'm a bit more prepared for it than I was last time, so I'm okay.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
Not
Chris?
too bad. All right.
Yeah.
Nervously.
You're not very confident.
Just nervously awaiting what this one holds this time, hey?
Yeah. Well, hopefully it won't be as long as the last one. Fingers crossed. So obviously today we're here to talk about mental health and hospitality. I've kind of changed a little bit the running order of what we were going to discuss with, because of the lockdown that we didn't know we were having when we first planned this live. So let's talk about this lockdown first of all. So what are your thoughts and how will people cope, and what sort of impact do you think it will have on people's mental health this time around? Chris?
Well, I think, from feedback that we've had so far at the Burnt Chef Project, we have started to hear that people are a little bit more concerned this time around going into it. They know what they're expecting. They know the isolation measures from last time, and they're also concerned that obviously with the weather changes now that they're likely to be penned up more inside. But I suspect that the lockdown measures this time aren't going to be as stringent and as tight. A lot of the restaurants, from what I understand, and Adam, you might know this as well, is that a lot of people are relying on more takeout methods. So I think hospitality is still going to trade in a form this time, as opposed to completely and utterly shutting down.
Yeah. Okay. And Adam, talk to us about obviously your first lockdown. You said you learned quite a lot from that, and you think you'll be different going into this second one.
Yeah, I think the first time I had no idea what to expect. Yes, I kept busy by doing Instagram videos and stuff, but mentally I wasn't prepared for what was going to go on in my head, so to speak. Whereas now I've put in place, I've got a training regime to do at home, eating healthily, writing my thoughts down, etc. So mentally I'm a lot more prepared, and that's why I said earlier that I'm okay about it for now. Obviously it changes as the days and weeks go on, and obviously you have to adapt to those changes, but it's about adaptation, and that's fundamentally where I'm at with it right now.
Okay, and Chris, I asked you about this before, obviously the live, and you said you gave me some tips of what people can do for themselves or for their staff to kind of get through the next 4 weeks, and that was regular check-ins and training opportunities. Do you want to maybe elaborate a bit more on that and maybe help people out with how they can help each other?
Yeah, I think the key thing that going into lockdown is that ultimately we are so used to being in fast-paced environments. We're always busy. You never really get much time to yourself, never get much time to think, and it's different. Lockdown's a completely different pace of life, but you are able to fill it up with different tasks. So, for example, one thing that I'd recommend to anyone, the sort of main pillars of good mental health and general well-being are sleep, nutrition, connecting with people, physical exercise. They're just some of the ways in which you can start to build like a daily ritual for yourselves that allow you to fill up your time. So we're not being locked down. We're not being told that we're only allowed to go out for a half an hour or an hour a day. We're still able to go out and exercise, and we can do that freely without any specific time frames or time periods. So build into your day at least once a day, getting outside in the fresh air. Getting outside and going for a walk, going for a ride, going for a jog, whatever it might be. I did hear the Tennis Association were trying to get people to go and play tennis because there was a natural barrier in between. And, So if you can find yourself a tennis court, go and play tennis. Just do something to get your arms, your legs moving, get outside, breathing fresh air, get your heart pumping, and make that part of your daily ritual. eating regularly and eating the right things as well. You know, up your intake of your fresh fruit and veg. You don't want to be eating fatty foods, stodgy carbs. You know, you want to be eating things that are nutritionally very beneficial for you, high in vitamins, certainly vitamin D and vitamin B as well. And make sure that you're eating 3 square meals a day, because that's something that hospitality professionals probably aren't used to. You know, you get a quick meal when you can, and especially when stress kicks in, your stomach shuts down and you don't tend to eat again for another 9-10 hours. So
yeah. I mean, it sounds like you're saying as well, find some time to not think about everything else that's going on. And like Adam, I think that's what you said, you've got like an idea of what you want to do over the next 4 weeks. Sorry, could I don't know who's talking behind you.
Yeah, I know.
But I can't hear what you're saying. It's really distracting.
No, I'm gonna. Yeah, I've told them.
Okay.
That's it. I'm gonna take them outside now.
Yeah, tell them they're live. Need to be quiet. Yeah, is that for you? Is it important to kind of step away from the situation that's going on and not think about it? It doesn't all have to be about work.
For me, yes, it is, and a routine is so important. You know, as Chris mentioned, you know, we're used to a routine of getting up, going to work, being ready for service, etc., etc. Whereas routine, even in lockdown, is about, for me, and I can only speak from my experience, is about getting up at a regular time of 8 o'clock rather than lying in, making sure that I'm active in the morning. So I'll go for a run, or I will go for a run. Then I make sure I eat properly, as Chris said, and it is so important that it's balanced nutritionally and healthy, you know, because it's all good for the brain. And then I probably exercise twice a day in lockdown, because I know that will help me, and it's structure. I have to have structure in my life. If I don't have structure, then I'm all over the shop. So that's one of the most important things for me.
Yeah, and I'm sure that resonates with a lot of people.
I think it's very difficult not to for you to go or to think about the situation. As much as we say that we have to look at it being positive and stuff, it's very difficult sometimes for you not to think about it, because it's surrounding us on a daily basis. Like I will only listen to the news once a day. At the beginning of lockdown, the first one, I was listening to it all the time. I had the news channel, and it wasn't good for me, because you're constantly surrounding yourself by that, and that's not good. So the other thing I look to do is I look to listen to the news in the afternoon and not the evening, because in the evening I'd go to bed and my head would be constantly telling me things. And that was, again, you know, I'm more prepared, or I'm better prepared for lockdown 2 than I was in 1. But I'm sure that's the same for everybody, but it's also about having the tools and for you to think about what you're doing in order to make this one slightly better.
Yeah.
There is anxiety around it, because people's jobs and livelihoods are at stake. You know, furlough, whilst it's good, it may not pay everybody's salary. So, you know, there's different aspects to different people.
I think also, just going back to what you're saying as well, and working out what is good for you and what isn't. I mean, Adam, it's a great point about cutting off news. You know, news is a source of worry, it's a source of anxiety.
Yeah.
If you think of your day and your structure as a car battery, I think it's probably the best analogy I can give you. You've got a positive and you've got a negative. Positive helps fuel you and makes you work well and work better. Negative sucks the life out of you and it moves your stuff away. And I think if you're looking at your day and you're looking at your activities, write down on a piece of paper what's going to give you power and make you feel positive throughout the course of the day. What's going to suck that power out of you and make you look at things in a negative light. And if you can write down a number of different things on each side, then you'll know what to avoid and you'll know what to concentrate your time on.
Okay. Before I move on to my next point, we've had someone ask a question whilst we're live, and I just wanted to. I think it's quite a good one. So, someone said that they struggle to get motivated whilst they're on lockdown. Have you got any tips for a struggling 50-year-old chef?
Sure, Adam.
For me, it's about making sure you get up, you have a routine, and motivation. Yes, it's tough, but you have to, once you start that motivation and you start it positively, then it continues. If you start it negatively, then that's when the trouble starts, especially for me. So I know, you know, as of tomorrow, I'll get up and my routine starts as of tomorrow, the first day. I'm not saying it will work like that every day, but I will do my utmost to make sure that I do that and that I stick to it. You know, and I've got a support network around me that I can make a phone call and say that I'm struggling, and people will help me, you know. And I think that's another important thing, is if you are struggling, you know, pick up the phone and speak to somebody, because invariably they can look at it in a different way, and maybe one thing that they say will actually spark something in your head to say, right, I can get motivated and I can get on with it. So I think that's my tip, as you should say.
No, it's good. It's good. And use that. Like, if you're struggling for things to do, find something that you haven't done before. You know, if you're not this person that goes out regularly and exercises, go out first thing in the morning and exercise. I went out this morning for a half an hour walk with the dog. It was just enough to be able to get the heart pumping. And it was lovely and crisp, and the birds were singing, and there's all these things going on that perhaps you never really pay too much attention to because you've got your phone in front of your face or you're working long hours. So if you get up early, you've achieved something. If you get up perhaps earlier than you would do normally as well. But like, learn a new skill. Like, there's so much content online now, you know, learn about whatever you might be interested in, or, you know, learn about photography, learn about how to get the best light on photography shots, you know, learn about marketing, learn about, you know, knife skills or skill sets or new ingredients lists or new products to the market. Like, find subjects to learn and develop yourself. Like, spend more time on yourself and you'll feel naturally a lot better.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. And the final kind of point on lockdown before move on to our other topics that we wanted to talk about is, I did ask you for some figures from the Burnt Chef survey that you did during last lockdown, and you said that 24% of people said their employer provided resources to help manage their mental well-being. So we've talked about, you know, Adam as an individual, but what can what can employers do to help employees through this?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's equally both as uncertain and less uncertain than it was last time, in a strange sort of way, because people know what to expect this time, but also at the same time, this is the second time that this is happening. So I think employers need to be aware that the staff are going to feel quite anxious at this moment in time. They don't know what's waiting around on the other side. You know, I have heard comments that people don't expect hospitality to be any good after this, which, you know, I think for a lot of us out there, we know that hospitality is quite resilient. You know, we adapt, we thrive. It's the third largest employer in the UK, so it's likely to go on for a while. So I think people need to sort of, like, you know, be rest assured that there will be a strong hospitality industry after COVID. But I think employers need to be checking in with their staff regularly. You know, not necessarily overloading them with work questions, or just general conversations. Find out how they're doing, find out what they're up to. Use some of the 5 steps to well-being to just check in and perhaps give your employees some suggestions on what to do in terms of managing their own mental health or well-being. Even arrange meetups. You know, you can still meet up outside with one other member from a household. So, you know, use this opportunity to go out and go for a walk with another member of staff and interact with people that you perhaps haven't done before. But I think it's important that employers are not just sort of letting their staff go for a month and not contacting them. I think contact is the key thing. Adam?
Oh, I agree. There's not much more I can add to that. I think, you know, it's about the employer has a responsibility, in my opinion, to make sure that the staff are okay and to check in on them. It shows the sign of a good employer.
Yeah, well, hopefully you do another survey and that number will be a lot higher, Chris. That would be great. Something to come out of this, wouldn't it? So, yeah. So away from coronavirus for now, Adam, would you be happy to share kind of your experience of mental health that you've had, that, you know, so people can kind of understand kind of anything that you've been through, as long as you're happy to talk about it and they can maybe relate to?
I think, you know, one of the things is smashing the stigma around it, and it's so important to talk about it. So if I talk about it, then hopefully that will open it up for other people to say, yes, it's acceptable to talk about it, because it is acceptable. There's no shame in it, you know. this industry is a macho dominated industry, which is what I mean by that is that, you know, people can't show their feelings or they can't behave in a certain way. Whereas today it needs to change, and it needs to be where it shows greater strength to talk about it than it does to keep it in my opinion. I think, yeah, I suffer from mental health. I suffer from addiction. You know, and I think that both went hand in hand to a certain degree. Mine started from an early age. I couldn't tell you now what triggered my mental health, but I've suffered with it for years, you know. And then I suppose through the mental health, I just wanted to bury my head in the sand, and the way that I could do that is through drugs, and my addiction took hold, and it really took hold up until 3 years ago. And thankfully I've come through the other side now, and it's so you can come through the other side. Don't get me wrong, I don't have, my life is not a bed of roses all the time, but it's better. I can deal with life on life terms, and I can deal with life as it comes to me 90% of the time. And like I said before, if I can't, then I've got a support network around me. You know, and my family was massive, you know, and I have a great group of friends that I can call on and say, right, okay, I'm struggling today. And people, it's just about talking, you know, like I now go around the team in the morning and say, morning, how are you? You know, those few words, how are you? That can open up a conversation. And that's, you know, that's so important today. But there's no shame in it. And I don't, when I first came into recovery through my addiction, it was like, I can't talk about this. I didn't know how to talk about it. Whereas now I talk about it, not for a sense of, so I can help other people. I think that's more about, you know, why I do this is about helping people and showing people that, like I said before, that, you know, you can talk about it and there's no shame in it whatsoever.
Adam, just out of curiosity, when you say you've got a great group of friends and family around you, think back to when you first, perhaps at the start of the addiction, did you feel like you had that support bubble then, or was this like, did you feel like you still couldn't talk about it because the stigma was so strong?
Yeah, I think the stigma was so strong that I didn't know how to. I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to get off, I call it the hamster's wheel. I wanted to get off that hamster's wheel years before I did. But it was about how could I speak up about it? Whilst I had that, it was about, and the stigma around it, you know, to say that I was in trouble, whether that was through mental health or whether that was through my drug addiction. It was about how could I talk about it? And I didn't know how to open my mouth. That was the thing. I wanted to talk about it, but the words wouldn't come out. And it's, now I've come through that, it's silly really to think about how I thought about it then. If I'd spoken about it earlier, there's no way I would have been in the situation that I was 3 years ago.
And what would the now version of you tell the version of yourself back then? What would you do to open up that conversation? How would you deal with yourself?
A lot better than I did. I think through like the Burnt Chef project, you know, and the voice that you have within the industry, it's about that there is no shame about it. And that you can, you know, like I said before, it shows great strength to talk about it. And I've lost friends through it, but you know what? It doesn't matter to me. I don't need those people around me, if that makes sense, you know. I think if I was myself then, I'd say, you know, have the confidence to speak about it. There are many groups around that can help. And it's about confidence. You know, when I mean confidence, I mean that if you tell somebody that they're not going to go and say something, because that's so important when you're in that situation, is that you can have a conversation, and I can't think of the word, is that you can have a conversation with somebody and it's a secure conversation and safe spaces to talk. And there are those spaces. I go to CA, you know, and it's a safe environment for me. And we can talk, and you know, I have a network around me that I know that if I say something, it's not going to go anywhere, and that they also can relate to it, which I think is also another important thing, is that if you're going through something, and you can, there's a saying within CA is that you can only be taught by another addict. But what I mean by that is that they can relate to it. People on the outside don't necessarily understand why you're in that situation. And I think that's another thing, is that, you know, I'm not saying that is necessarily the case for mental health, because I can talk to people about mental health that aren't in that bubble. But I think it's about having that safe environment that you can feel protected. That's another percentage of why people potentially don't speak out.
I think looking at the numbers of people that suffer from ill mental health within hospitality, I think for anyone out there that is struggling, I think by just, as you say, you have to be an addict to teach an addict. But I think you also, if you use the same principle and say that you have to have experience of ill mental health to be able to talk about ill mental health, I think you're pretty safe within hospitality. The chances are you're probably going to find someone who understands what you're going through. And it's a great point about just opening up and setting that first foot in motion to be able to talk to someone and just talk to them in confidence and start sharing your problems.
I think the relief I got once I was able to talk about it and say whatever was going on, and even today to be able to talk about it and to say what's going on, is such a relief on a daily basis. You're not bottling it up, and you're not, believe it or not, you're not the only one that's going through those things. There's hundreds of people, you know, and it's about, you know, as an industry, we need to change and say, right, okay, this is acceptable to talk about it. Give people safe places to talk or to go, and to support people. One of the biggest things for me is that, you know, if you turn to alcohol, drugs, or whatever addiction it is that employers don't necessarily cut people free or loose, is what I mean. Is that, you know, that's the easy option. That's not solving the problem. The problem is still there. It's about giving people the ability to change. They have to change. They have to want to change, but it's about giving them the support to say, okay, yes, you're going through this, but we will support you. And that shows, again, from an employer, that's a massive step to be able to support that person and to give them the space in order to get better, whether that's through addiction or through mental health.
Adam, can I ask what it was that made you realise you needed help and that you weren't coping with everything on your own?
It's as clean as it was yesterday. I was sat at the end of the counter at the test kitchen, and I just was broken. I couldn't continue the way I was going. It was just a dangerous place for me, and I knew that I had to stop. I was a daily user, and I used a lot. And I'm not saying that out of ego or anything, but I knew that I was all over the place, and I just couldn't continue. And there was a trigger inside my head that said I couldn't continue like this. And the first person I phoned was my sister, and it was the hardest conversation. But from speaking about it, that gave me the ability to say, right, okay, I need to change. And that's how it started. But I was a broken man. Completely. I had I had nothing, no soul, there was nothing inside. I was the shell of Adam, if that makes sense.
That first initial conversation then obviously that you'd had, that then helped you on your journey to where you are now.
Yeah, and my sister, and this goes back to the confidence, the safe place is that I could phone my sister, and I knew that she wouldn't go and say anything to anybody in the family. And then I had to then go and make that step on the following Sunday to go and tell my other family that the situation, and that was the hardest thing. Because, you know, but once I'd done that, the relief once I'd done it and the support that I had was just immense. And I can't thank them enough for that. And blood is blood, and that's, you know, family, you think, but what they did do and the way they were was just unbelievable.
Yeah, well, that's really good to hear. And you touched on as well, you did touch on, you know, employers and helping their staff. And one of your points was the impact of mental health on a business. And sometimes maybe people don't realise that the benefits of actually looking after your staff in the first place.
Yeah, Chris and I have discussed this in great length, right at the very beginning. And I think the thing is that I think the thing is that, you can't, to invest in your staff is so important, because you have staff retention. The staff retention then makes the business easier to run. Like for me in the kitchen, if I have to retrain somebody every 2 or 3 months, it makes my job 10 times harder. Whereas if I can look after staff within being part of an organisation that respects staff in that way, then it just makes everybody's job easier, as well as the cost. You don't need to keep, there's a cost to retraining people.
Yes, and it's substantial as well. I mean, it's a bugbear of mine that actually, I mean, look at the profitability of how hospitality businesses operate within the world, not just UK, and their operating profits, their net profits are so low. And yes, you look at staffing costs, you look at wastage, and you look at those other areas, but you never actually look at your retention, and you never look at the cost involved in the retention and the training and the, like setting a new person up on payroll and all these other aspects. And I think, if business owners start to spend more time, like a great analogy for me, I heard it actually, I was chatting to a friend from, there's an American company called Meespray. It's like an online mise en place system. And he gave me a great analogy just before we came on here, which was about the gold rush. And he said, yes, people went out in America to the gold rush, and they picked up loads of gold and they were wealthy. But the real winners were the guys who made the tools and made some really good quality tools, and tools that worked better and lasted longer. And ultimately, there was a combined win, because not only the people who made good quality tools made a living, but also the gold miners ended up with more gold. And the analogy is that if you invest your time and money in getting better equipment and better staff, and making sure that your staff are happier, healthier, then they'll work harder for you for a much longer period of time.
Yeah, and on that point, Adam, what does the hospitality industry need to do to implement these changes? How do we make this happen?
That's a good question.
I want you to give me the.
I wasn't expecting that one. I'll give you the magic potion that we can.
Yeah, please. That would be fantastic.
I think it's going to be small steps, and again, I think now is the time when we need to, what's happened within the industry. Now is the time to start to make those changes. It's going to take time. I think everybody agrees that is the case, but we need to put a stake in the ground and say this is where we're going to change, and from now. How that works, I don't. It's about getting everybody on board and understanding that it is an industry problem, and it's not just one property or one business. It's an industry problem, and we can all say, well, it's been like this for years, but that's not helping the problem. The problem is still there, and it's how I'm going round and round here. I think I don't. Help me out. It's
just about changing the conversation, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, thank you.
For so long we've operated in this way, and this is the way that things are done. But it takes a brave individual, and certainly a brave business owner, to stop and reevaluate the way that things have always been done, and develop a new way that's going to benefit not just their business, but also the well-being of the staff who work for them.
But even small changes, like you said, Adam, come in every day and you say hello to everyone and you ask how they are. I mean, I know that's small, but that, for somebody that would be massive, just to feel like someone is paying attention to them.
Well, yeah, exactly that. And the other thing is being, people are looking at the working hours, whether you do a 4-day on, 3-day off, or reducing the hours so that people have a bit more time to be able to, down tools and not think about work so much. Within the pressures, allow them to go out and do team activities if the restaurant or hotel shuts, or split teams where they can do stuff. It's about investing in staff, and there's a number of good meals at work. Yes, there's a cost implication to this. Of course there is. but that cost implication is far outweigh, yeah, in the long term, you'll recuperate that money massively by not having to re-employ people, or sick days. You know, sick days cost the industry millions, you know, and it's about investing in the industry like that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Deloitte did a study back in January. They said that there's on average a 5-to-1 return on employers who invest in mental well-being and their staff. So, you know, for every £1 you spend, you get £5 back. It's a no-brainer. It just takes, as I say, a brave employer to actually start spending money in order to make sure his staff are happy and healthier, and he'll get a much greater return. And the staff will get a much better life for themselves as well.
Don't get me wrong, back in the day, I was a nightmare as a head chef. I probably still am, my boys will tell me. But I think working, I try and look after the staff, and I try and, you know, be a better manager, and look at, you know, when you've got a team of people to manage, not everybody, you know, it's about understanding your team and realizing if somebody is down and asking them if you know, is there an issue? You know, if people are late all the time, why are they late? Why is there suddenly a pattern that occurs? You know, as an owner or a manager or a chef, you know, it's about understanding these things within the team. And I think those, you know, it has to start at the top, and then it works its way down. So it starts with an owner or the manager or the, you know, head chef, exec chef, whatever. And then it filters down from there.
Okay, and I just wanted to pick up on the final point that you sent across to me before this live. That was that you think that we should start talking about mental health earlier. So, like in colleges was your example. So I don't know if you want to elaborate on that point and why you think that's so important.
Well, I think that was Chris. Chris came up with that initial idea about going into colleges, and I think, and it's, when you think about it, it's got to start from that point, because they're the people that are coming into the industry. They're the future of the industry, and it's about we need to get these youngsters into the industry, and they need to not understand, but there needs to be an understanding that it's okay to talk about it, because if the next generation don't, then we're going to be on this hamster's wheel that will never change. So Chris's initiative to go into colleges, I thought, was brilliant.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
I mean, stop it, you. All right.
No, but it makes perfect sense, and it's only. But this is what I'm trying to say, and I've said it before, is that without like the Burnt Chef project, then the industry would continue to carry on as it is. Whereas, you know, what Chris is trying to do is huge within the industry, and it's got to start from somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key thing is think back. I mean, Adam, when was the first time you learned about mental health? What age?
Well, I've always known about it, but learnt about it was when we started speaking, really.
Yeah.
But that came down. Sorry to digress slightly here, but that came down from the first lockdown. You know, that's how this, you know, I started speaking to Chris, and it's just evolved from there. And but that started from lockdown because I wanted to try and change, not only myself, but you know, help other people within the industry of what was going on now. And it was so prevalent then, you know, and I had the time to do it. But I was always one for starting stuff and never finishing it. Whereas now it's, you know, it's about following through, and you get so much. I get so much from helping people. I don't do it all the time. I'm not saying I'm a saint, but you get so much from helping people, or from being able to talk about it and helping in that way, you know. And again, I'll say this, is that there was a gentleman that contacted me through Instagram after reading my bit on the Burnt Chef project, and it was inspirational to him. And I'm not saying this. Why I'm saying this is because without the platform of the Burnt Chef project, it wouldn't give people a voice. That then wouldn't give people the inspiration to say we can change, and that comes down to that. That's why I'm saying it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, ultimately that's what the ambassador scheme is about as well. It's about people being able to share their experiences to let other people know that they're
and
not
it works,
alone.
but it works because
Yeah.
people read it, and that's helping people, you know, and that gave me goosebumps. And I phoned Chris the day after because it's so, that's what it's there for, to help people.
That's good. And if we can get more people as, you know, at a younger age to understand what's good mental health, what's bad mental health, and to be able to have these conversations even at a school level across their peers, then hopefully in the future there'll be no need for a website that talks about mental illness and I'll be out of work. But you know, I mean, that would be the best case scenario, making myself redundant, because no longer is it going to be an issue within this industry. And I really hope to dear God that that's the stage that we get to. But I think, you know, be able to work with the colleges and also be able to work with people within the industry just to break down the walls of the stigma. You know, hopefully within the next 5-10 years, we'll start to see this change in attitudes. And, you know, you're going to get new young entrepreneurs who come into the industry who want to do it differently, and who will be ending up with multiple businesses all based around the well-being of their staff and low stress, rather than, you know, maximum stress, high turnover and poor profits.
I also think what's pleasing is that colleges are the number of colleges that have been spoken to are fully adverse, is that the right word, or they want to be on board and they see the value in it, which, you know, is so pleasing that they are looking at it like that.
Yeah, we're quite busy for the next few months, aren't we? So,
but I think, because obviously you talked about the ambassadors and how that has worked, it's probably a good point for you, Chris, to be able to say how people can be involved with the Burnt Chef Project who are watching now, and just to kind of reiterate how easy it is.
Yeah, easy. I mean, it's easy to get in contact by all means. The Burnt Chef Project, we don't advertise the ambassador program purely because there's so many great people out there who, you know, we get inundated with messages about signing up. But if you are interested in becoming an ambassador, we'll train you in mental health awareness. That's an outsourced mental health awareness course at the moment, but we're designing one internally, which we'll be rolling out to colleges next month. So just get in contact us via social media, via Instagram, or via our email, info@theburntchefproject.com, and we can give you some more information about that.
Brilliant. Well, I think that's the perfect place for us to finish this second live. Adam, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure that everyone watching really does as well, and hopefully we can help some more people just by you talking.
Thank you.
Chris, as always, a pleasure. Next week, we'll be joined by Andrew Lennox, who's the founder of Zim and Wonky Table. So if you have any questions, please do comment on this live or get in touch with either myself or Chris via social media. And we'll be happy to put those across. So yeah, thank you very much. And we'll see you next Wednesday at 4:45. Thank you both.
Thank you. See you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.